Jolly Green 1990 here to talk about my review and opinion of Amazon's new movie Samaritan with Sylvester Stallone. Spoilers ahead. Right off the bat, I loved it. I thought it was a 9 out of 10. I thought it would be nice to have a little more information on the Samaritan and how he got his powers. I didn't think you needed that. That's why it was to me. It was still an amazing movie. I thought the cast did a phenomenal job. I love the actor who they had for the Samaritan Sylvester, or who they you think is Samaritan Sylvester Stallone, and then the actor who played the bad guy for the film that takes up the mantle of Cyrus, Samaritan's brother. So right off the bat, I'm going to get to spoilers. I love the twist at the end where you find out that Sylvester Stallone's character, Joe Smith, is in fact Cyrus, the villain of the original, going back 20, 30, or 20 years. 20, 30 years, we don't get an exact timeline, essentially, when they had their epic battle, and then Samaritan and Cyrus supposedly both died. We actually see through a flashback that it was actually Samaritan who dies. Cyrus holds his hand, he drops him, and then he decides, conflicted, basically, we see they both died that day. I liked, so jumping back, going from beginning in, how they kind of set up this young boy who had this admiration for the hero. They show that he's kind of on a morally great area where he doesn't want to commit crimes, but he needs to do something to help his mom. He has his one little friend who gets him to do those side jobs, and that leads into interactions with the villain who eventually becomes Cyrus, the villain, and his crew. And I like kind of how that leads him to the other character. I forget his name, but kind of got the dreads. It was I think he was either a Nickelodeon or a Disney actor, and so I like kind of seeing that actor. So I think that was cool. So his interaction with him, boy distracts convenience store owner. They steal some stuff, and then they're kind of confronted. Hey, this is the wrong stuff. Chips. It's like, well, it's all him. It's like, no, it's like, I did what you said, and so then I thought that was kind of cool. Where then the villain steps up. It's like, yeah, what did you say? And so kind of having that moment where the boys kind of now got this character kind of look up to, father figure. And then at that moment, essentially, you have then Sylvester Stallone's character steps in and kind of becomes the father figure. So that's essentially that scene happens because as he's walking by the guys who he did a job for, go after because they're mad that he didn't get the right stuff, even though it was the right box that he had said. And so they're beating him up. Sylvester Stallone comes in, throws him out, grabs the knife. And that to me is cool. And so from that point on, we start seeing kind of, he's trying to see, okay, he is Samaritan, all this stuff is going on. It's like, are you not? And then he gets hit by a car. And then as the main character is dealing with stuff, he also kind of gets caught up with the villain who at this point now has gotten the hammer that apparently has the rage of Cyrus in it. All we know is it can damage them. All we know is kind of they're, I'd say, meta-humans almost. They've got superpowers. I do like, jumping for a second, I like with that how Sylvester Stallone kind of explains the physiology of his character. Just a little, hey, my body heats, so I need stuff to cool me down, particularly ice cream. And so to me, that was a nice way to say, hey, there is a weakness here, big time. And to me, that was nice to see them establishing that early on. And so then we see where he gets hit by the car and he heals. And then we see it going on forward. I said the character has kind of a moral conviction where he's working with them, but he also realizes these guys are not good because at this point they've gotten the hammer, they've gotten the bombs, and they're starting to use them, start creating an organization, cause chaos. I did like seeing that. I thought that was cool. Is when he gets it, he doesn't just spray gas one area, causes it. And it's like, wait. Stick around and see what he was. And then they start passing out masks, creating anarchy. Like the big plan is Cyrus. He wanted to bring down the power grid. And we find it was more just a trap to attack his brother, and he just wanted to defeat his brother. It wasn't about taking the power or anything. It was more just hatred for his brother. And so then we jump forward a little, and they realize when he wasn't injured by the car after Dredd had beaten up the main character, to the point where his hand was cast, and this was because he was helping them, that he didn't want to go all the way and beat up his friend, the African American kid who had kind of been teased in the beginning. It was like, I can't do that. But he learned, so he'd been training with Sylvester Stallone's character, sucker punched him, and then he stuck around and they busted his arm. And so bring him to a cart, and they realize, oh my God, this guy's fine. What's going on? He goes, Dredd tells his cousin, who was like the right hand man of the villain. He's like, bro. It's like, what? This guy's alive. It's like, no, I hate him. And boss like, what do you mean? It's like, look at the car. It's like, I want to meet this guy. And this leads us to the hospital. And then we transition to essentially they see him, they come after him. It goes out an alley, and then we have the confrontation, which was beautiful with nice little beating them up, gunshot. And then on the floor, the girl's like, it was you. So he saved the little girl with a little wall. He's like, it was just like, the henchman is like, hey, dodge this. And he's like, oh, pulls up, jumps behind a car, pulls it up, blocks it, and then we're like, oh snap, it's like, it is you. And that leads him to go and say, hey, boss. Henchman goes, boss, it's him. They go after the apartment. At this point, Sylvester Stallone's character, Joe Smith, realizes he got a bolt, takes his stuff, runs, more heads, I think, to work. But then when he comes back, he finds he can talk to the kid, say, hey, here's your watch. And that was what the character was looking for when all the villains came after the apartment. Didn't find him, took the kid, harassed his mother. And so she's beaten up in the apartment. And so Sylvester's character's like, what happened? She's like, they took the kid. It's like, oh, who? It's like the bad guys. It's like, oh. And so then this leads him to get into actor mode. A little side piece. I do like the fact that he talks about how he can destroy things so cooperative, calming for him is building. And so we see that with the watch. We see that with some other stuff. I thought we were going to see more kind of him tinker and build like a suit or something, or even like another hammer or weapon. I thought that would have been cool. We didn't, but it was cool. They, we at least got to see him just rush in. And so I like that, he just charged. He at least had a similar plan, took the truck, rushed in, and then he just took him on. And then he gets there, and the villain's got the hammer. He's like, got you. Beating him up. And Sylvester Stallone's like, I'm not the hero. I'm the bad guy. And he's like, oh my God. He's like, you're Cyrus. You're the villain. It's like Samaritan died. You won. And I think, we don't know, but to me, I can almost imagine him saying, why didn't you carry out your plan? And Sylvester Stallone, because it was a trap. It was a trap. It was never about the plan. I think his idol didn't live up to his expectations for the villain. So he was like, I'm just going to kill you now. It's like, I got the kid trapped. Spoiler alert. He's tied up. It's like, fudge it. But to me, there's a shift in that point, too, because now they think, first I think they thought maybe he was using killing them. Now they know he's the villain. He's straight up killing people. And I loved seeing that. Like, we didn't see him just murder people, but we saw him walk away as people were being murdered. And I thought that was cool to kind of show here's this morally great character who, straight up villain, but then kind of has these 20 years to reflect. And now he's like, look, I gotta say it's good. And he's got that anger in him. We see it throughout the movie. Yes, he's like, he can use it. And I think he realizes that. And so then he goes after to save the kid. At this point, he's got the hammer back, or he had the hammer back. He goes up. After he's defeated majority of the bad guys, there's fire. Kid's tied up. Bad guy, actual real bad guy, picks up the hammer and goes after him. And I like the fact that we see that he is weakened, and it's because of the fire, because his heart's going to, overheat and explode, or cause him die. And so I like that weakness comes into play. I thought that was perfect. I like the standoff between him and the bad guy. I thought, like, the fact he actually beat him with the kid's help. He comes up, releases himself, bops the guy, and that allows him to physically pull himself up where he was dangling because the villain kind of knocked him over. And so he pulls himself up, wraps him, I think, in a pipe, something. Maybe it was the hammer. I don't remember exactly, but I like the fact that he physically picks him up. The kid's kind of knocked down a little, and just tosses him over. It's like at that point I think, oh, still Louise good. Like, this is the bad guy. It's like hasta la vista, sucker. Wrong actor, I know, but it's still exciting to me to see Sylvester Stallone pick him up and just chuck him. It's like saves the kid, get out of there. It's like kid. His name's Sam. It's like, what's going on? Who was it? It's like, it was Samaritan. We know it wasn't, but I think he's going to going forward. I doubt we'll have another movie. If we did, we could see maybe him stepping into the role. So, liked it. Basic premise. We didn't have a lot of backstory of powers and everything, and that was fine to me. I think a little more context with him and his brother. Not a lot, but just a little, very basic, maybe childhood, kind of going one thing here, or even if they didn't show childhood, show kind of how they ended up there, and more of what led to the plan or lack of plan, and maybe we see some henchmen kind of helping, and then we see it all unfold. So aside from that, I mean, to me, it was still 9 and 10. I loved the twist. I kind of felt like there was something coming. I mean, he didn't feel hero. I mean, heroic. You could say maybe it's because he was hiding for 20 years if he was the hero, but still felt like something was just there nagging me. It didn't quite feel like either he wasn't the hero or there was something more we were missing. And so to me, that we were missing is the fact that he was not the hero; he was Cyrus, and so the villain, the evil brother. And so I liked that twist. I thought that was wonderful. Good acting. You can always argue there was a few things that could have been up for me. It was good. I thought that was nice. Said I enjoyed it. I thought, oh, I was going to mention, it is based on a comic. Apparently, the Astro comic. I still think it's different because from what I remember, Samaritan from the Astro comic could fly. Now, if it is, fine, but if not, because he at least has the same name. So you could argue maybe it is, but to me, you'd have to get more context from the writer and the director to know more, and you'd have to see if they're actually releasing stuff. If it was, awesome. If not, fine as well, because I think again this could stay. I think this could stand alone by itself. Either way, I was content. Loved the movie. Wonderful job. So this has been Jolly Green 1990s review and opinion of Amazon's Samaritan with Sylvester Stallone.